Before I start, I just wanted to let you know that if you ever see me looking away from the camera, it's because I have two monitors, one right there and then one over there. And there's just some key points, and I want to keep in mind the questions you have for us. So sorry if you see me looking off and it looks like I'm reading something. I'm just trying to make sure that I get certain key points or certain notes that I took from the article. So, hello, my name is JT, and today I want to talk to you about Elizabeth Escobedo's Pachuca Panic article, which was something that I didn't really know about this Pachuca Panic until I had read this, because I don't really have any family members that grew up in America during this time. My grandma immigrated, but she was way after this. And so reading about this, I didn't know that these types of, not tasks, but these type of things were things that Mexican American women had to go through on a day-to-day basis, and things that they had to consider throughout their life. And so the first question was that what key questions does Elizabeth Escobedo have about young Mexican American women and their leisure culture? In other words, what do they do for fun? I think she has three primary questions. The first one being is, what role did leisure activities play in the lives of young Mexican American women during the 1940s and 1950s? The second question being was, how did the cultural tensions between Mexican and American identities shape the leisure activities of young Mexican American women? And the third and final question is, what were the consequences, both positive and negative, of young Mexican American women's participations in leisure activities such as dancing and fashion? And I think in regards to the leisure activities, I feel that there was many positive and negatives of these Mexican American women dancing and these leisure activities that they did. And I found that it was a good little escape and a way for them to express themselves with their fashion and their dancing, to way for them where, from what I perceived in this article, Mexican American women weren't really represented that well during this time. So I feel like this was their way that they would represent themselves and show their culture. And dancing, I think, is a very expressive thing, same as fashion, where you can dance a certain way or dress a certain way to kind of represent yourself and to show who you are. And then it really allows you to express and kind of give for people to judge you in a way, and whatever way you want to paint yourself. And the next question was, what does Escobedo show us about the relationship between fashion and rebellion? I believe that I'm sorry, the Pachuca style was characterized by zoot suits, pompadours, and obviously heavy makeup, and was seen as a form of a rebellion against mainstream American culture that sought to assimilate Mexican culture, where they kind of wanted to stand out. And Escobedo argues that Pachuca style was not just a fashion trend, but a political statement that challenged dominant cultural norms and represented a form of resistance against racial and gender discrimination. The young Mexican American women of this country who adopted this style of clothing were able to express their identity, like I've said before, and assert their agenda in society, or their profile in a society that often, as I feel, was represented, which often marginalized them. And then I say that Escobedo also shows that Pachuca style was met with opposition from both mainstream American society and Mexican American community. And I feel that way because, as someone who grew up around a Mexican American family and with my aunties and uncles, I feel like Mexican Americans are very close-minded, and they really resent change, to where it takes a lot for them to open up their mind to something or get them to accept something new. For example, a way I've seen it is some of my cousins who are LGBTQ plus. They were in the closet for years before they told their parents, because they knew how their Mexican family and friends would react to that type of news. Being different in the Mexican American community is something I would say is very rough, because it's not very seen, or it's not normalized yet. Like, there's machismo and machisima, which means to be a strong woman or a strong man, but with those things, they're usually used in a very negative connotation. With those words, you usually see males who are they think in a very old-fashioned sense, where a man has to be a man, he has to do everything, he has to make the income. You can't have emotion, you can't be different, you always have to remain the same, you have to be strong, which is something that's become a very bad habit in the Mexican community. And same thing with women. with machismo, it means a woman, like, all you're supposed to do is provide, you can't do nothing, you're supposed to just be the mother of his kids. Like, those are two very toxic mindsets, and mindsets that I think that are very outdated to this day. She also talks about the zoot suit riots in 1943, example, were a violent response to the perceived threat of Mexican American youth culture, which included the zoot suit style, otherwise known as the Pachuca style. And I think overall what Mrs. Escobedo's article is trying to do is show how powerful fashion really is, and how it can be shown as a way of resistance and rebellion. And it also is a way to show that there are social and political consequences of such expressions of someone's identity. I feel that even though they took such a simple thing such as fashion, it was met with such high resistance and rebellion. And even on a communal level, on a political level, I mean, we see how the police got involved. And I don't know if, let me just make sure. There's also a zoot suit film made in 1981, and I've actually watched that. And it's an amazing film, and it goes over a book that talks about zoot suits and how it affected. And if you haven't watched it or read it, I'd recommend go reading that book, because it's a fantastic book that really gives like a visual to how these zoot suits were treated, and how they were perceived, and how there was a kind of community. And one thing I do like about this is that the people who embrace this type of style actually formed a community, and they formed I would say kind of a family, and they had people that they could go to, and people that they could lean on, people that they could depend on. And I like that aspect of this article that I didn't really even think about when I thought about the zoot suits, is that when this type of style was introduced, it really allowed, as much as it formed a bunch of rebellion and political strife, it also brought a lot of people together, which was something that I really enjoyed, because I love to see when communities do that, when they have something that they'll have something in common, whether it brings in people from a bunch of different backgrounds, whether that be gang members or people who are just normal individuals, or just anyone from a certain community. I like how it brings everyone together. And your last question is, do you or your peers use fashion to make statements about your position in society? If so, how? Yeah, I would say my peers, the people around me, people my age, even younger, I'd say fashion is definitely used as a statement about someone's position in society. For example, like me, I'm wearing a Nike shirt. You can't see, but I have some Nike shorts on, and I have some socks and some Crocs. That could be a telltale of my position, of how I am. That's a personification of me. I like sports, which is Nike, and I like to be comfortable, hence why I have basketball shorts on, some socks. But for other people, there are people who wear very luxury name brands, such as Gucci, Prada, any of those types of things, and that could be a telltale sign. Like, there are some people in this world who will only go outdoors and be willing to be seen by people if they have a name brand on. Or even to go farther than fashion, like, for example, with women, having your makeup done really nice could be an example, could be a show of your position in society. I know that some celebrities have very professional and very intense makeup crews to make sure that they look good. So that could be a telltale sign of your position in society. And I feel that on campus with fashion majors, I have a couple of friends who are, but you'll always see them in very nice fits, and they'll make sure that their colors are very go with one another, and they'll make sure that they look representable. And even though it may look a little weird to some people, you could tell that that's a very high class outfit due to their the logo they have on their jacket, or maybe the type of shoes that they're wearing. Another way that you could tell is, for example, my brother. My brother is super heavy into shoes, like Jordans and Nike, and so he has a lot of very costly shoes. So you can often see that he cares about fashion, that he's a little bit higher paycheck in society with his shoes. Because, for example, he has like some $2,000, $3,000 shoes that he'll wear most occasionally. So you could tell that he makes a good amount of money. But however, I will say, on the other end of the spectrum, there are some people who do save over a certain amount of time to buy certain outfits to make it seem like they're very high or very wealthy or very high position in society. So I say sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't tell, but I'd say most of the time it's very easy to tell by someone's appearance, by someone's fashion. what their position is in society. And I think that overall, just to wrap things up, I really enjoyed this article. I didn't know about this time, obviously because I didn't grow up during this time. But I thought it was very interesting, and I like how you can still see some of this style coming through today. And I think the best example I have of it is with my grandpa. He'll sometimes dress a little reminiscent of this style, and same thing with my grandma. They'll talk to me about growing up in LA during this times and how interesting it was and how especially dangerous it was to be a Mexican American. So I like that this gave me more knowledge and more insight about during this time, and I actually can't wait to, whenever I see my grandpa again, to go talk to him about this, because I thought this was super interesting. And I just want to say thank you for giving us such great articles and lectures for the week. You know, you're making this class very, very entertaining for someone who didn't really expect much going into this class. So I just want to say thank you again. This was a fantastic article, and I can't wait to read whichever next one you decide to assign us. Thank you.